Welcome, friend. In the vastness of the universe, you may wonder why you exist. A random chance, a miraculous anomaly. You here, aware, alive. Today we'll explore the improbable, the impossible, and the deep mystery of life itself. Sit back, relax, let the cosmos unfold. Chapter 1. The void before anything. Before the beginning, there was no before. Not because nothing had happened yet, but because nothing existed to allow anything to happen at all. No space, no time, no atoms, no energy, no stars, no cold, no warmth, not even emptiness. The mind struggles to imagine it. It tries to see blackness, a silent, vacant void. But even that is too much. Blackness is a color. Silence is a sound forgotten. A void is still a shape with borders. But this true nothing is not simply the absence of things. It is the absence of possibility. And within it, nestled in a stillness so absolute that the very idea of movement had never existed, there was instability. Not a thing, not a force, not an event, just a quantum whisper, a ripple in nothing that didn't come from anything because there was nothing to come from. And from that ripple, everything. The universe didn't explode into being, it expanded. Instantaneously, violently, with no direction, no observer, no laws. The Big Bang was not an explosion like fireworks, it was a change in the state of reality itself. Space-time itself unfolded, all at once, and with it the first ingredients of all things began to emerge. Quarks, gluons, leptons, photons. They formed in billionths of a second, particles of matter and antimatter bubbling into being in a soup too hot for atoms to hold. And then they annihilated each other, almost equally. For every particle of matter, a mirror of antimatter appeared, and they collided and vanished. Perfect symmetry, perfect disappearance. Except something broke. For every billion pairs that destroyed each other, one lonely matter particle survived, 1 in a billion. That flaw in symmetry, that tiny deviation, is the only reason anything remains. The only reason galaxies exist, the only reason stars burn, the only reason you can hear this voice now. That imbalance is why you exist. 3 minutes into existence, the universe had cooled enough to allow protons and neutrons to bind together. Not into life or stars or even planets, into helium and hydrogen nuclei. The simplest atoms, no electrons yet, no light in the darkness. The universe expanded and cooled. And waited. For 380,000 years, everything remained shrouded in an opaque fog of plasma. No light could travel freely. The entire cosmos was like the inside of a furnace, glowing but blind. And then finally, the fog cleared. Electrons found their places. Atoms formed, photons escaped, and for the first time, light could move. The moment is called recombination, the first true transparency. The first sunrise of the cosmos, the first whisper of possibility that someone like you might one day come to be. And yet, nothing resembling life existed, not even stars. It took 100 million years before the first stars formed. They were not like ours. They were titanic, unstable, furious things, massive and short-lived, made only of hydrogen and helium. They collapsed, lived for a brief moment, and then died in colossal explosions called supernovae. And in those deaths, something new was born. Heavier elements, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron. Everything your body is made of was forged in the hearts of ancient stars and scattered across the void in blasts that shredded their birth clouds. You are the product of their destruction. Without death, you could not breathe. Without collapse, there is no structure. Without loss, there is no you. Over billions of years, galaxies spun into form. Gravity coalesced dust into solar systems. Rocks circled stars. Some of them cooled, some held water. And on one of those, a small nondescript planet, third from its star. A place formed where life could try. Not thrive, not flourish, not plan, just try. Even at this early point, the odds of your existence are functionally zero. The laws of physics did not anticipate consciousness. The equations of cosmology did not intend life. Entropy, the universe's natural drift into disorder, did not bend to accommodate curiosity. And yet, in this improbable place, the chemistry of carbon chains organized itself. And for the first time in 13.8 billion years, something happened that had never happened before. Not an explosion, not a collision, not a force, but a question. The universe, through its dust and heat and broken symmetry, had built something that could wonder. And in that moment, so faint, so small, it had created the one thing it was never supposed to have: a witness. You, not just life but a self, a being who can contemplate their odds, a mind that can say "I am" and understand what that means. You were never guaranteed, never planned. There is no equation that demanded you, no law that ensured your arrival, no physical necessity that said someone like you must emerge from the void. And yet, here you are, your atoms forged in fire, your consciousness sculpted by chaos, your breath borrowed from collapsing stars. You shouldn't exist, and yet, you do. Chapter 2. A universe born from instability. The universe did not begin in fire, not in the way myths once told. It began in instability. And that should terrify you more than any explosion ever could, because instability is not a decision, it is not a plan, it is a crack in perfection. And from that crack, everything emerged. The most accepted model for the birth of our universe begins with a state known as a quantum vacuum. Despite the name, this vacuum isn't empty in the traditional sense. It's a simmering, chaotic field of potential, governed not by classical laws, but by probabilities. Quantum fields fluctuate constantly, even in what we perceive as nothing. Tiny particles burst into and out of existence. Virtual pairs annihilate each other before they're ever seen. For a long time, this was all that existed. Unreal things happening in an unreal space. No direction, no matter, just math in a realm without units. Then, at some point, a fluctuation occurred. Not a big one, not dramatic, but just enough to tip the scales. A bubble of space-time expanded rapidly, driven by a form of energy we call inflation. It wasn't an explosion, it was space itself stretching faster than the speed of light. Not moving through space, but creating it, expanding it, filling it with the potential for everything we know. And just like that, the universe was born. Not with permission, not with reason, but because the vacuum was unstable. Inflation lasted mere fractions of a second, somewhere between 10 menosquares and 10 seconds after the initial moment. But in that blink of time, the universe expanded from subatomic size to cosmic scale. We cannot directly observe this moment. It left no light behind. But we see its fingerprints in the structure of the cosmos, in the distribution of galaxies, in the uniformity of the cosmic microwave background radiation. The oldest light in existence, still whispering from 13.8 billion years ago. This radiation, discovered accidentally by Penzias and Wilson in 1965, is the echo of that ancient transformation. The afterglow of instability made manifest. After inflation, the energy driving that expansion decayed into particles and heat. Quarks, electrons, neutrinos, photons flooded the newborn universe. This period is known as reheating, not because something was warmed again, but because heat itself as a concept began to make sense. The temperature was estimated around 10 Kelvin. It was chaos, violent, but structured. From this mess, a series of processes called baryogenesis determined the eventual balance of matter in the universe. And the universe got it wrong, again. Symmetry should have meant that for every particle of matter, an antiparticle would be formed. Perfect opposites, mirror twins. But that's not what happened. For every billion matter-antimatter pairs created, there was one extra particle of matter left behind. 1 in a billion. This slight imperfection, this violation of expected symmetry, is the only reason stars exist. The only reason matter didn't cancel itself out. The only reason you're here to hear this now. The universe was governed even then by a set of forces. Gravity, the slowest, most patient sculptor. Electromagnetism, the shaper of atoms and light. The strong nuclear force, the glue of nuclei. The weak nuclear force, the usher of radioactive decay. These forces weren't designed, they emerged, set into motion by the initial state of the universe. Their strengths and balances are arbitrary, constants we measure, not ones we can explain. If gravity had been even slightly stronger, stars would have collapsed too quickly. If the strong force were weaker, atomic nuclei couldn't hold together. If the weak force had a different value, the sun wouldn't shine. There's no reason these values are what they are. They simply are, and because of that, you are. Around 380,000 years later, after further cooling, the first atoms formed, mostly hydrogen and helium. The universe became transparent. Light could finally travel freely. This is when the cosmic microwave background was released, flooding the universe with photons that still pass through your body every second. It took millions of years more before gravity could sculpt matter into the first stars. These stars lived short, volatile lives. They burned bright and collapsed fast. In their cores, nuclear fusion built heavier elements: carbon, oxygen, iron. When they died in supernovae, they scattered these elements across the cosmos. Every oxygen atom in your blood, every calcium ion in your bones, every carbon ring in your DNA was forged in the death throes of a star that existed billions of years before your planet even formed. The universe didn't care. It didn't mean to build you. It didn't know what it was doing. It was unstable. It was expanding. It was cooling. And those facts combined made you statistically possible, but never probable. The cosmos does not need you. It does not notice you. And yet, improbably, impossibly, you are here. The laws that shape this universe are balanced on a razor's edge. Scientists have cataloged more than 20 fundamental constants, things like the gravitational constant, the fine structure constant, Planck's constant. And if any of them varied by even a fraction of a percent, life as we know it could not exist. This idea is known as fine-tuning. Some call it coincidence, others design, many mystery. But regardless of philosophy, the numbers remain. Out of all possible arrangements of physical law, we live in the one that allows complex structures to emerge, that allows matter to endure, that allows thought to arise, that allows you. You are not special because the universe made you intentionally. You are special because the universe, in its chaotic expansion, did not prevent you. That is enough. You are the rarest event in a cosmos designed for decay. You are stability emerging from instability. You are never supposed to exist, and yet you do. Chapter 3. Stars that shouldn't have formed. The universe was not built for structure. Its nature from the very first moment of existence was one of expansion, dissipation, and increasing entropy. Everything was flying apart. The space between particles grew by the second. Energy thinned, cooled, scattered. And yet somehow, against that current of ever-deepening stillness, light began to gather. For hundreds of thousands of years after the Big Bang, the universe was too hot for atoms to form. Electrons and protons existed, but they couldn't stay together. Every time they approached, the ambient radiation knocked them apart again. Only once the cosmos cooled to around 3000 Kelvin did electrons finally settle into orbits. Atoms became real. Light, the kind that could move freely, filled the universe. This moment is known as recombination, and it marked the birth of the cosmic microwave background, that soft, whispering relic still echoing around you today. But recombination didn't create stars. That would require something far more fragile, something the expanding universe made almost impossible, something called clumping. To form stars, matter must condense, it must slow down, it must fall inward. But how does that happen in a universe that is still running away from itself? Even in the earliest simulations of the cosmos, small irregularities, slightly denser pockets of matter, begin to emerge. Quantum fluctuations from inflation stretched across the sky became the seeds of galaxies. But those irregularities were tiny, 1 part in 100,000, too small to notice, and yet just enough to matter. Gravity is patient. It does not rush. It does not demand. It simply pulls forever. In those slightly denser regions, gravity had just a bit more to work with. Hydrogen atoms found themselves a little closer together than average. Over millions of years, those regions grew denser, fell inward, compressed. When the density reached a tipping point, so did temperature. At 10 million Kelvin, the impossible happened. Nuclear fusion ignited. The first stars lit the dark like sparks catching in fog. But they were not like our sun. They were enormous, strange, short-lived. We call them population 3 stars, hypothetical now as none have survived to be seen. But based on the physics of the early universe, they would have been 100 to 1,000 times the mass of our sun, composed almost entirely of hydrogen and helium. No iron, no carbon, no oxygen. They were primordial fire, fueled by the lightest elements, unfiltered by metals or dust. And they lived fast. Some only lasted a few million years, a blink in stellar time. Then they died, and in death they gave birth to something new. Supernovae are not just spectacular events, they are factories. They are the only way the universe creates elements heavier than iron. Without supernovae, there would be no carbon in your cells, no phosphorus in your DNA, no iron in your blood. The first stars died so you could be built. But even their formation was improbable. Our best simulations of the early universe show that for clumping to occur at all, the density of matter had to be exactly right. If there had been just a little more dark energy, expansion would have overpowered gravity. No stars. If there had been just a little less matter, the same. The universe would have coasted cold and empty. The window was narrow. And yet, stars formed anyway. Think about what that means. Gravity, working across billions of light years, defied expansion. It paused chaos just long enough to allow atoms to gather, and through sheer patience, it made light. Stars did not have to exist, but they did. And they did it in a universe that gave them almost no help. From those early giants came the second generation, stars like our sun, smaller, longer-lived, richer in heavier elements. These stars gave rise to planetary systems, debris disks, rocky worlds, and eventually, on one of those worlds, you. But without the first generation, without those titanic ephemeral population 3 stars, there would be no chemistry of life. No carbon chains, no water molecules, no complex matter, only hydrogen, only helium, only heat and light and nothing else. So remember this. Every time you look at a night sky, every time you see a star flicker, you are witnessing a miracle that should not have been. A balancing act in a universe that does not balance. A pause in entropy, engineered by nothing but time and gravity. And yet, stars are dying even now. Most that have ever existed are already gone. Their light still travels, but their fire is out. The future holds no promise of new stars forever. In trillions of years, star formation will end. The last red dwarfs will fade, and darkness will return. The stars that formed were rare. The ones still burning, rarer still. The ones that burned in time for you to be born, almost incalculably rare. And still, they formed, they burned, they died. And you, a temporary arrangement of atoms forged in stellar death, became aware. Not because the stars asked for it, not because the universe planned it, but because the odds allowed it. You are the breath of hydrogen that learned to think. You are a flicker of helium that refuses to fade. You are the light of a star that should never have formed, and still, you did. Chapter 4. A planet at the right distance. Not all stars are kind. Some are born violent, massive blue suns that burn too hot and die too soon. Others flicker with instability, releasing flares that sterilize everything around them. Some never form planets at all. Their gravity dominates, but their disks remain barren. Even among the stars that can host planets, few will ever cradle one like Earth. Because forming a planet is one thing, keeping it alive is another. Our story continues in a quiet spiral arm of a galaxy called the Milky Way. Not in its core, too chaotic. Not near its edge, too sparse. Just far enough in to benefit from older stars' heavy elements, and far enough out to avoid the radiation storms of the center. A place where the conditions were not perfect, but possible. And here, around 4.6 billion years ago, a cloud of dust began to collapse. The solar system was not born in order. It began in violence. A nearby supernova likely seeded the dust cloud with material and triggered its collapse. Gravity took hold, compressing the cloud until it spun, flattened, and heated. At its center, a newborn star, our sun. Around it, a turbulent disk of gas, rock, ice, and metal. In that disk, tiny grains collided, stuck together, broke apart, and reformed. Dust became pebbles. Pebbles became boulders. Boulders formed planetesimals, bodies tens of kilometers wide, crashing and merging in the darkness. And eventually, these became worlds. Earth began as one of these, a sphere of molten rock, glowing red under constant bombardment. Its surface churned, its atmosphere was toxic, its magnetic field had not yet stabilized. The moon did not yet exist. And yet, from the start, Earth occupied a critical position, what we now call the habitable zone. Not too close, not too far. Too close to the sun and water evaporates. Atmospheres are stripped. Planets become deserts like Mercury or volcanic hellscapes like Venus. Too far and water freezes. Chemical reactions slow. Worlds become icy husks like Europa or Pluto. But Earth found the narrow band where water could remain liquid, where warmth could be retained without ignition, where stability was possible. It settled at an average of 150 million kilometers from the sun. That distance alone didn't guarantee anything, but it allowed everything. Still, proximity wasn't enough. Earth needed time. It needed luck. It needed stability, a condition almost hostile to the early solar system. Gas giants migrated. Asteroids rained down. Planetary orbits shifted. Jupiter, the largest of the planets, might have drifted inward, consuming everything in its path, had Saturn not pulled it back into balance with a delicate gravitational resonance. If the timing had been different by a few million years, there would be no Earth. Or no room for Earth. Then came the collision. Roughly 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized planet named Theia struck Earth at a glancing angle. The impact vaporized both crusts. Debris was launched into orbit. The Earth recoalesced, and from the debris the moon formed. Without that impact, Earth would be smaller. Its tilt, spin, tides, and climate cycles would all be vastly different. It's possible Earth's very ability to hold onto an atmosphere was altered by this cosmic accident. And the moon, it stabilized Earth's axial tilt, preventing wild swings in climate that could have made long-term evolution impossible. It slowed Earth's rotation, giving days and nights time to matter. Without the moon, you might not be here. Then came water. We still debate its origins. Some scientists believe Earth had water from the start, bound in minerals during its formation. Others suggest it arrived later, delivered by icy asteroids and comets during the late heavy bombardment. Either way, it stayed. Earth's gravity was strong enough to hold it, the atmosphere thick enough to protect it, the temperature low enough to preserve it. And so the surface cooled. Rain fell, oceans gathered, the sky cleared, and a window opened. A window where chemistry could try something new. But Earth remained a narrow target. Too much volcanic activity could have choked the atmosphere. Too little, and life-critical gases like CO2 would never have circulated. Too much iron, and magnetism might have failed. Too little, and solar radiation would have erased organic molecules. Plate tectonics recycled minerals. A liquid core protected against solar wind. Rock, air, water, and fire found a fragile equilibrium, and that equilibrium lasted for billions of years. Long enough for life to try. Long enough for you to begin. And consider this, Earth has always been a moving target. Its orbit wobbles, its axis shifts, its magnetic field flips. Its continents drift, its climate swings, and yet, over 4.5 billion years, the balance has never tipped far enough to erase everything. Mass extinctions happened, but life recovered. Impacts, ice ages, gamma-ray bursts, supervolcanoes, all came and went. And still, Earth remained hospitable. Not perfect, but enough. Astronomers now believe that Earth-like planets may be common, but that doesn't make your Earth any less rare, because being Earth-like isn't enough. You need the right ingredients, the right star, the right moon, the right magnetic field, the right chemistry, the right time, and all of that by chance aligned here. Once, maybe only once, and you were born into it. Your planet could have frozen, it could have burned, it could have never gathered atmosphere or never formed at all. It could have spun too fast, been hit too hard, cooled too slow, tilted too far. But it didn't. It did what the universe almost never does. It held steady, long enough for thought to emerge, long enough for atoms to wonder about themselves, long enough for you. Chapter 5. The Impossibility of Life from Stone. It began in silence, not the kind you hear in quiet rooms, but the ancient silence of stone and ocean, long before language, before breath, before the notion of sound meant anything. Your world was water and rock. Volcanoes hissed through ocean mists, lightning danced above ammonia skies. No voices, no minds, just a planet spinning under an uncaring star. And from that world of ash and acid, life tried to begin. What we call life is a dance of complex chemistry. Chains of atoms folded into shapes that replicate, mutate, consume, and persist. But before cells, before membranes, before even the simplest proteins, there was only stone, rock, liquid, energy, and molecules with no instruction set. The Earth of 4 billion years ago was not lifeless in the way a desert is lifeless. It was pre-alive, brimming with potential and completely indifferent to it. Scientists call this moment the abiogenesis window, the point where the universe first crossed the chasm between chemistry and biology. The moment when molecules didn't just exist, they behaved, they changed themselves. They chose, in the only way chemicals can, to preserve structure. But here's the terrifying truth. We don't know how it happened. Not fully, not even close. Several theories compete. One posits that life began in warm ponds, as Darwin once speculated. Shallow pools enriched by lightning and solar radiation. Another points to hydrothermal vents, deep-sea geysers where mineral-laden water pours from the Earth's crust, creating chemical gradients ideal for complex reactions. A third imagines clay surfaces that catalyzed organic molecules into longer chains, static scaffolding guiding blind assembly. They're beautiful hypotheses, but none offer a complete answer. None explain how complexity broke free from chaos. Because creating a single functioning protein with the right amino acids, in the right order, in the right shape, by chance is statistically improbable to the point of absurdity. And yet, it happened. The first spark may have been RNA, a molecule capable of carrying information and catalyzing reactions. It can fold, it can copy itself, it can make mistakes, and those mistakes fuel evolution. Some believe life began not with cells, but with RNA worlds. Molecules drifting through warm pools, replicating imperfectly, until one mutation changed everything. Others suggest metabolism came first, that networks of simple chemical reactions formed loops, cycles, feedback. That life was not a molecule, but a pattern. One that learned to sustain itself before it learned to copy. Still others wonder if life came from elsewhere, from icy comets, or dust-ridden meteorites bearing amino acids from star systems long dead. But none of these theories change the fundamental truth. Life emerged from stone, from matter that should have remained inert. And that is almost impossible. Because carbon doesn't dream, nitrogen doesn't learn, phosphorus doesn't care. But somehow, somewhere, they assembled into membranes, into catalysts, into replicators, into things that could outlast themselves. To make even the simplest single-celled organism requires dozens of proteins, coordinated in just the right balance. Each protein must fold precisely or it won't work. Each step must avoid degradation, disruption, entropy. And yet, life arose, maybe once, maybe many times, but only one line endured. All life on Earth, from bacteria to blue whales, shares a common genetic ancestor, a single root, which means despite all possible combinations, only one configuration survived. Think of the odds. Think of the molecules that almost worked, that folded wrong, that copied once and failed, the false starts, the chemical ghosts. Trillions of attempts across every tide pool, every vent, every ocean trench, until one didn't fail. One arrangement held. It was not inevitable. It was not designed. It was a statistical miracle. If Earth had been slightly warmer, if the atmosphere had more oxygen too early, if volcanic cycles had shifted differently, none of this would have happened. Life would not have gained a foothold. You would not be reading this, and the rocks would still sleep. Even after life began, it remained fragile. For over 1 billion years, Earth's life consisted only of single-celled organisms. No eyes, no bones, no thought, just tiny patient biochemistry, enduring, replicating, mutating, waiting. There were no minds to see the sunrise, no memories, no names. But even then, you were beginning. Not in form, but in possibility. Because those early cells became colonies. Colonies became cooperation. Cooperation became complexity. And through this slow, indifferent climb, life bootstrapped itself into consciousness. A process that began with wet rock and ultraviolet light ended somehow in you. We don't know how, and maybe we never will. But the unknown doesn't lessen the wonder. If anything, it deepens it. Because you were never meant to happen. Not by chance, not by chemistry, not by nature. You are an anomaly of anomalies, the child of stone and flame and oceans that burned. You should be ash, but instead, you are breathing. Chapter 6. Extinction was always the default. Life did not flourish because the universe welcomed it. It survived because it refused to leave. From the very beginning, existence has been hostile to continuity. Everything that lives must fight, not against a villain, but against entropy. The natural state of the universe is disorder, dissolution, collapse. The miracle is not that life exists. The miracle is that it persisted. For most of Earth's history, life was not diverse. It was not intelligent. It was not even visible. For billions of years, the planet was ruled by single-celled organisms. They fed, divided, and died. The atmosphere was toxic. The oceans were full of iron and methane. No eyes, no skeletons, no nervous systems. And even then, even in that early simplicity, life almost didn't make it. Around 2.4 billion years ago, cyanobacteria began releasing oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. This transformed the atmosphere, and in doing so, poisoned nearly every anaerobic organism on Earth. We call it the Great Oxidation Event. But for early life, it was closer to apocalypse. Countless species perished. The survivors were those who adapted or hid. Oxygen, now essential to complex life, was once a toxic gas. The very air you breathe was once a mass extinction. It would not be the last. The fossil record bears witness to at least 5 major extinction events, each one wiping out the majority of life on Earth. Ordovician Silurian extinction, 443 million years ago. Around 85% of marine species vanished, likely due to a massive glaciation triggered by continental drift and falling CO2. Late Devonian extinction, 375 million years ago. A prolonged series of pulses possibly linked to algal blooms, ocean anoxia, or volcanic activity. It cleared the seas of early reef builders and fish. Permian Triassic extinction, 252 million years ago, the worst extinction event in Earth's history. Over 95% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial species died. Siberian volcanic eruptions may have ignited massive methane release, cooking the planet from within. Triassic-Jurassic extinction, 201 million years ago, a sharp die-off that paved the way for the rise of dinosaurs, possibly linked to massive CO2 emissions and climate chaos. Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction, 66 million years ago, The most famous, a 10-kilometer-wide asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. The age of dinosaurs ended. Mammals emerged from the shadows. Each extinction event reset the evolutionary clock. Each one could have erased life entirely. None did. But there were close calls. The sun itself has flared in unpredictable ways. A superflare today could disable global power grids, scorch the ozone layer, and trigger a collapse of agriculture. Earth has likely been brushed by gamma-ray bursts, the deadliest form of electromagnetic radiation, which can strip a planet's atmosphere in seconds if close enough. Magnetic pole reversals, which happen irregularly, reduce Earth's protection against cosmic rays, increasing mutation rates and possibly influencing mass extinctions. Our orbit is not immune either. The planet's tilt shifts over tens of thousands of years. Ice ages follow, land bridges appear, ecosystems vanish, and hovering in the sky is the promise of future asteroid impacts, statistically guaranteed, merely delayed. The threat has never left. Only our awareness of it has grown. And through it all, life adapted. It moved to the deep sea, it crept into deserts, it learned to feed on sulfur, on radiation, on stone. Even in the aftermath of cataclysms, life didn't just return, it diversified. The Cambrian explosion, around 540 million years ago, saw an eruption of complexity in the fossil record. Multicellular life took risks. Eyes, shells, jaws, neural networks. But it didn't happen out of stability. It happened after Earth was knocked down and got back up. Still, evolution does not guarantee progress. It doesn't reward strength or intelligence. It rewards survivability. And most life, even the most magnificent, is temporary. 99.9% of all species that have ever lived are extinct. All dinosaurs, all trilobites, all pterosaurs, all mammoths, mastodons, megalodons. And one day, every species alive today, including humans, will join that list. Extinction is not a rare event. It is the default. So how did you make it? You, specifically. A self-aware cluster of cells capable of reflecting on your own fragility. How did you survive when everything else tried not to let you? The answer is simple. You didn't. Your ancestors did. Through every extinction, every bottleneck, every global firestorm or ice age, someone survived and passed their biology forward. You are a composite of the stubborn, the lucky, the hidden, the fast, the clever, the immune. You are the culmination of every organism that did not die when it should have. Even now, extinction lingers in the atmosphere. Species vanish every day, too slowly for headlines, too quickly for comfort. Biodiversity shrinks. Oceans acidify, temperatures rise, viruses mutate, and still you live. You feel, you think, you create. In a universe where everything dies, you are here. For now, and that is enough. Your breath is a rebellion. Your thoughts are a glitch in thermodynamics. Your ability to care, to mourn, to build, to protect is not supported by physics, but it happened anyway. You should not exist. Life should have failed 1,000 times over. And yet you do. Chapter 7. Ancestral Chains Without a Break. You are here because of something that happened a long time ago, but not just a long time ago. You are here because millions of your ancestors, many of them unknowingly, survived things that should have ended them. Survival is not inevitable. It is not a guarantee. It is a struggle against the vast, indifferent forces of the universe. It is a miracle. You were not made in a single moment. You were forged by every generation that came before you. Life as we know it began with a single-cell organism, some 3.5 billion years ago. The first replication, the first survival. From that first split, life did something unique. It remembered itself. Through every mutation, every failure, every near-extinction event, life has found a way to keep going. Through earthquakes, ice ages, solar flares, and asteroid impacts, your ancestors continued, simply because they could adapt, they could survive, and most importantly, they could reproduce. For every ancestor you know by name, there are 1,000 more you'll never meet. Ancestors who passed on their genes, their strengths and their weaknesses, down to you. When you trace your family tree back far enough, it becomes impossible to count. At some point, you simply reach a genetic pool where all the individual branches merge. The tree becomes a single trunk, and if you trace that trunk back far enough, it ends in a single organism. Every single organism in your line, back to that first simple cell, is connected. They are all one organism, one line of life, and that line stretches uninterrupted from the beginning of time. It never broke, not once. Imagine for a moment the odds involved in that continuity. The oldest known human ancestor, Ardipithecus ramidus, lived around 4.4 million years ago. And from Ardi all the way to you, each individual ancestor survived long enough to reproduce. But survival is not guaranteed. Not even close. If, during any of the countless generations, a single individual had died before passing on their genes, the chain would have been broken. The entire lineage would have ended. One misstep, one wrong turn, one illness, one predator, one harsh winter, and you would not exist. It's not just about one individual surviving, though. It's about the entire chain. There were entire species that survived the wild swings of Earth's history, extinction events, glaciations, mass volcanic eruptions, and yet somehow they kept reproducing. They adapted, changed, evolved. But even in those species, continuity was fragile. Species do not live forever. Their genes mutate, their environments change, they go extinct. And yet from their extinction, something new emerges. Somehow, the chain continues. The lineage of life is not a straight line. It is a tangled web of evolution, survival, and imperfection. Species break apart, but their genes, they find a way to persist. Consider the fossils, the imprints of the beings that came before you. Millions of years ago, your distant ancestors walked the earth, leaving their bones to fossilize. And yet, for all the creatures that once roamed the world, most are gone. Their species died out. We know them only through the dust and bones they left behind. But their legacy didn't die. You carry the genes of every organism that survived long enough to reproduce. But more than that, you carry their experiences, their adaptations, their responses to environmental pressures, the thick skin of a mammoth, the keen vision of an ancient bird, the ability to survive in extreme temperatures passed from bacteria that lived at the deepest sea vents. These are your ancestors, the lineage that persists through the dark, silent corridors of time. The memories of their struggles encoded into your DNA. Even their failures, their mistakes, and their errors, those also persist as silent whispers in your genetic code. But survival doesn't happen in a vacuum. The chain continues not because of individuals alone, but because of communities. Social behavior is another key to your survival. The earliest organisms did not survive alone. Life evolved from single-celled beings that formed colonies. Bacteria that worked together to find food, fight off enemies, and protect each other. These early colonies gave rise to more complex beings, multicellular life. And the same is true in your lineage. Every successful species in your family tree depended on sociality. Not only did they need to find food or shelter, but they needed each other. Consider the early hominids struggling against larger predators, harsh climates, and changing landscapes. You don't get to modern humanity without cooperation. You don't get to civilization without tools, language, and support. The chain of human survival was not just about individual strength. It was about community. That same need for connection remains in you. You are not here alone. You are here because your ancestors worked together, because they shared resources, sheltered each other, learned to trust. And yet even societies can fall. Empires rise and crumble, kingdoms disappear, civilizations vanish, and yet the lineage continues. The genes, the memories, the adaptations, they pass down through time. The chain is fragile. It is not an unstoppable force, but it is persistent. The birth of one human being is nothing short of a statistical miracle. You are the end result of a chain that has survived wars, plagues, natural disasters, invasions, accidents, starvation, and disease. Some of your ancestors survived only by a single stroke of luck. A predator missed. A child survived an illness. A storm passed, just barely. At every step, there were factors that could have ended it all. And yet, here you are. And you are not just a product of one set of lucky genes. You are the composite of every gene that survived, against all odds through the ages. Every ancestor you have ever known, back to the very first cell, made the decision to reproduce. They passed their genetic code forward, despite the odds, despite the conditions, despite the universe's constant drive toward disorder. And in doing so, they preserved you. The chain of life is unbroken, and you, fragile and rare, are the latest link. You are not the result of design or intention or luck alone. You are the result of persistence. And in a universe full of randomness, that persistence is nothing short of profound. Chapter 8. The Lottery of Fertilization. You were born because of 1 in a million chances. More precisely, you were born because of 1 in hundreds of millions, the number of sperm cells that raced to fertilize your mother's egg. It wasn't a single moment that determined your existence. It wasn't just chance. It was the collapsing of a vast web of probabilities, each factor combining in an improbable way. It is difficult to imagine a more unlikely event. Let's begin with the start of your journey. Every human being begins as a single, fertilized cell. But that cell was only formed because of a series of events that were not inevitable. First, your parents had to meet. Their genes had to combine. Your mother had to ovulate at the precise moment your father's sperm found its way to the egg. But before any of that, there was another impossibility. Before your birth, there was your father's genetic lottery. The race begins long before the moment of conception. The average human male produces between 1,500 to 2,000 sperm per second. That's up to 120 million sperm every day, all of which are designed to swim, compete, and ultimately fertilize the egg. But only one sperm wins, and for any one of them to reach the egg, the journey is long and fraught with odds against success. The sperm must survive the acidic environment of the vagina, the immune system's defenses, and the barriers of the cervix. Only the fastest and strongest reach the egg, with thousands dying along the way. By the time a sperm reaches the egg, there is only one left out of hundreds of millions. Only one. This first statistical chance is staggering enough, but there's another layer of complexity. The egg that will be fertilized is just as rare as the sperm. Every woman is born with a finite number of eggs, which diminish over time. By the time she reaches puberty, she will have only a fraction of the eggs she was born with, and even fewer will ever be fertilized. The egg that would eventually unite with your father's sperm had already spent years waiting. Unlike sperm, which are continuously created, the egg she produced was carefully selected from the pool of possibilities. But the odds don't stop there. What really defines this lottery is the genetic shuffle. Every time a sperm meets an egg, it doesn't just bring half of the child's DNA. It brings a carefully crafted combination of genetic traits, randomly selected from each of your parents. The 23 chromosomes from your mother meet the 23 chromosomes from your father, and together they create a brand new combination, one that had never existed before and never will again. Even though you share half of your genetic material with your mother and father, the combination of genes you received from them is unique. No one else, not even your siblings, has the exact same genetic makeup. This genetic lottery becomes more mind-boggling when you consider the infinite possibilities of inheritance. Each parent's genetic material is already a combination of 2 families, so every child carries a unique blend of ancestry, including the traits of distant relatives, some of whom lived hundreds or even thousands of years ago. If you trace your ancestry back just 10 generations, you have over 1,000 ancestors, each contributing a bit of their genetic code to you. But no two of them contributed equally. Some ancestors may have passed down only tiny fragments of DNA, while others may have contributed significant portions of your appearance, abilities, or susceptibility to certain diseases. And from this vast pool of inheritance, you emerged. The chances of any individual being born in the exact configuration you are, with the specific combination of genes that make you, are incalculably small. Even within your own body, the odds stack against you. After the sperm and egg combine, the fertilized egg begins its journey of cell division. Each cell will divide and multiply, creating the complex structure of your body. But every cell division is an imperfect process. There are millions of errors that can occur in DNA replication, and many of them lead to diseases or mutations. Yet, somehow, your body's systems fixed most of these errors as they occurred, ensuring that you grew as a healthy, functioning individual. If even one error in your genetic code had gone unchecked, you would be a different person entirely. In some cases, those errors lead to genetic disorders. Yet, for you, most of those potential outcomes were avoided. The miracle is not that all the odds were overcome. The miracle is that the odds were overcome just enough. In the grand scheme, you are not simply a product of chance. You are a result of chance, guided by necessity. You are a moment where the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology collided in the most improbable of ways, forming a structure capable of sustaining awareness. But this structure, this life, was never guaranteed. It was never predetermined. You are the result of an infinite series of events, each improbable on its own, but which came together just enough to create you. Not as a programmed being, but as an accident that made itself real. The odds against your existence, against the billions of sperm and eggs, against the countless genetic combinations, against the tiny mutations that allowed life to continue, are staggering, and yet you are here. Your existence is not the result of intention. It is not the result of some cosmic will. It is not part of some grand design. You are here because the dice rolled in your favor. But those dice were rolled millions of times, and you are the final, unexpected result. If you consider the long, winding road of time that brought you here, you realize just how fragile your existence is. From the moment your ancestors first began life on Earth, there were countless opportunities for extinction, for failure, for separation from the rest of life. And yet, you have survived. And in this moment, you realize, against all odds, you have already beaten the largest lottery the universe could throw at you. The journey is far from over. The odds of the future are no more predictable than the ones you've already overcome. But now, as you consider your place in time, one truth remains. You were never supposed to be here, and yet you are. Chapter 9. The Mutation That Became You. Life as it exists now is the product of thousands of tiny changes, moments so small and subtle that they go unnoticed in the grand sweep of time. But these mutations, these shifts in genetic code, are not mere accidents. They are the reason you exist. Every organism on Earth carries a genetic blueprint. This blueprint is composed of DNA, long strands of nucleotides twisted into the famous double helix. These nucleotides encode the information necessary to build the organism, to guide its growth, its responses to the environment, and its eventual reproduction. But life doesn't stay still. The blueprint is constantly being read, copied, and interpreted. Occasionally, something goes wrong. Mutations are the imperfections in that reading. A chemical change here, a substitution of one base for another there, a deletion, an insertion, small mistakes in the DNA sequence. Some mutations have no effect. They are neutral, like typos in a book that don't alter the meaning of the words. Others are harmful, causing diseases or malfunctions. Sometimes the mutation results in nothing at all. The organism continues unaffected, its function unchanged. And then, there are the mutations that change everything. It is in these rare transformative mutations that life finds its path forward. Every mutation, from the first single-celled organism to you, has been an experiment in survival. Some experiments were failures. Some were blind shots in the dark. But every so often, a mutation appeared that worked. It allowed the organism to survive a little longer, to adapt to a changing environment, to outcompete others. And those mutations, the successful ones, were passed down. The very first mutation in the history of life was likely the one that allowed self-replication. A molecule capable of copying itself, of storing and transferring information. That was the birth of life itself. A molecule, not just a structure, but a self-sustaining process. Then came the first cells. Simple, without much internal organization, but capable of dividing and reproducing. Those first mutations in early RNA and DNA were the seeds of everything that followed. Somewhere along the way, single-celled organisms began to cooperate, forming the first colonies, the first multicellular beings. This was another mutation. A way of life that opened the door to complexity, where cells started performing different tasks instead of all doing the same thing. Some cells would specialize in digestion, others in movement, others in reproduction. These colonies eventually became more organized, and some of them began to think. But not all mutations are beneficial. Sometimes mutations don't work. They don't help. They disrupt, they damage, they harm. But even in those failures, the genetic code remains adaptable. Cells may mutate in harmful ways, but they continue, persist, reproduce, and through the processes of natural selection, the genes that work best, the ones that promote survival, remain. Consider sickle cell anemia, a mutation that at first glance seems like a tragic flaw. The mutation that causes this disease alters the shape of red blood cells, causing them to be rigid and prone to clumping. These cells can block blood flow and cause pain and organ damage. Yet, in regions where malaria is prevalent, the sickle cell mutation offers a benefit. It provides resistance to the malaria parasite. For those with one copy of the mutated gene, the resistance to malaria outweighs the dangers of sickle cell anemia. In places like sub-Saharan Africa, this mutation has become widespread because it offers a survival advantage in a specific environment. Mutations are not guarantees. They don't make life better. They simply make it different. And in the vast expanse of time, those differences, the ones that allow an organism to survive longer, to reproduce more successfully, to find new food sources or adapt to new environments, survive. The ones that don't work, that fail, that waste energy and resources, those are lost. But the ones that succeed, the ones that improve the odds of survival, those become the legacy. Now, as you think about your existence, remember, you are here because of a unique genetic combination. But you're not just a result of two people's DNA. You are the product of billions of years of survival experiments. Experiments that carried your ancestors from the very first single cells all the way to this moment. You carry mutations that were once tiny changes. Each change, though small, made you. From your height to your eye color, to your susceptibility to diseases. From the way your cells metabolize energy to the way your body reacts to stress. Every bit of it is the result of millions of tiny, invisible decisions that were made along the way. The odds of you being born, as you are, with your specific genetic code, are almost zero. Consider the process of fertilization. One sperm, out of hundreds of millions, races to an egg and merges with it. The odds of that single sperm reaching the egg, the odds of your egg being the one selected, and then, once you've been formed, your cells begin dividing, multiplying, differentiating. Some of those cells become the structure of your heart. Some become the neurons of your brain. Some become your skin, your organs, your muscles. All of them, driven by genetic code, a code shaped by centuries of mutations. And somewhere along the way, the mutations that allowed your consciousness to emerge, those were perfected. You think, you feel, you experience. And though the process is still not fully understood, your very awareness is the product of billions of years of natural experimentation. You are not the perfect result. You are the successful accident, an ongoing experiment in survival, a story of imperfection that became real. The beauty of life lies not in its perfection, but in its adaptability. It is built from mistakes, from chaos, from trial and error. Life is not neat. It is messy, unpredictable, and dangerous. But those are the conditions under which you exist. And that is why you are here. Life never promised to make you perfect, but it persisted. Chapter 10. Consciousness with no explanation. You are aware. You know you are here. You are conscious of your thoughts. You feel the gentle pulse of your heartbeat. You know you exist, and in that knowing, you begin to understand that one simple truth. You are aware of your own existence. But why? How? How does a collection of molecules, cells, and atoms come to know itself? How does the firing of neurons and electrical impulses lead to the experience of being? Science does not have a clean answer. It has theories, it has data, it has models, but consciousness remains a mystery, and yet it is the most certain thing you know. You cannot doubt your own awareness. It is the foundation of everything you perceive. But where did it come from? The brain, that delicate organ wrapped in folds of soft gray matter, contains around 86 billion neurons, each making thousands of connections with other neurons. These neurons fire electrical signals, transmit chemical messages, and process information from the world around you. This vast network forms the foundation of your mind. But those connections, that neural activity, it's not just about gathering information. It's not just about reacting to stimuli. There's something more, a subjective experience, the feeling of being you, the sense of continuity in your thoughts. At the most fundamental level, the brain operates on patterns. Neurons fire in certain sequences. Cells communicate through synapses, transmitting electrical signals, and these patterns change constantly, adapting, shifting, responding. So how does that lead to self-awareness? How do these electrical patterns become a continuous thread of thought, a train of ideas, emotions, reflections, memories? There's a theory called the global workspace theory. It suggests that consciousness arises when information from various parts of the brain converges into a unified mental workspace, a place where various processes can interact and be integrated into a single, coherent experience. Imagine a theater where the spotlight shines on the stage. That stage represents your consciousness, the thoughts and experiences you're actively aware of. Everything happening in the background, your subconscious processing, your sensory perception, is still occurring, but it's outside the direct spotlight of awareness. But this theory only explains how consciousness works. It doesn't explain why consciousness exists. It doesn't explain how a collection of cells and electrical signals becomes a subject capable of thinking about itself, questioning its reality, wondering about the stars. Another hypothesis is the integrated information theory, IIT. This theory proposes that consciousness arises from complexity and integration. According to IIT, a system is conscious to the degree that it can integrate information in a way that is more than the sum of its parts. The brain's neural network doesn't just react to stimuli, it synthesizes information in a unified way, creating a global, unified experience of awareness. But once again, this is just a description of how consciousness might function. It doesn't explain how feeling emerges from these functions. How does the feeling of being emerge from mere processes? How does an emotion like love exist beyond chemical reactions? How do thoughts move from being mere electrical signals to becoming something meaningful, something you can feel? This brings us to the philosophical question. Why does any of this matter? You are conscious. You are aware. You know that you exist. You feel things. You can reflect on your own thoughts. But is that all just a byproduct of chemistry? Or is it something greater? Some argue that consciousness is nothing more than an emergent property, a byproduct of complex systems, like the way weather patterns emerge from molecules moving in the atmosphere. When enough neurons fire in complex ways, consciousness emerges. It's a natural consequence of biological complexity. But still, the question remains, why do we feel it? This is the realm where science falters. Science can explain the how, the physical processes, the networks, the patterns. But science cannot explain the why of consciousness. Why does a certain brain structure allow for self-awareness? Why does a chemical process in the brain translate into experience? Why do you experience the world as you do, from your unique perspective? Some say consciousness is an illusion, an ongoing, evolving process designed by evolution to enhance survival. It's the ability to predict outcomes, to make sense of the world, to plan ahead. In this view, consciousness is simply a tool. But that doesn't answer the question, why are you aware of this tool? Some scientists believe that consciousness might be quantum in nature, a complex, interconnected state of superposition. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in multiple states at once until they are measured or observed, collapsing into one state. Could consciousness be like that? A superposition of possibilities, collapsing into a single experience when we observe it? Does our awareness, the very act of observing our own thoughts, cause the universe to collapse into the reality we perceive? It's an interesting theory, but it too remains speculative. At the heart of this mystery is the fact that consciousness exists. You exist. You know you exist. You know you are aware. And that in itself is profound, because consciousness is not just an ability to process information. It is an experience of being. You don't just analyze the world, you feel it. You interact with it on an emotional and intellectual level. Your thoughts are yours. Your feelings are yours. This is the self, a concept that is uniquely human and perhaps in some sense uniquely biological. You know yourself. And yet, despite all the knowledge we have of the brain, of neurons, of chemicals, we still don't know why this awareness feels like something. Why it's not just processing. Why it's an experience. You are here because of biology, but your awareness goes beyond biology. It's a gift, a miracle, that no theory, no equation can fully capture. It is not reducible to mere physical processes. Consciousness is the experience of existing. It's the quiet awareness that you are here, thinking, reflecting, feeling. And that awareness is an anomaly in the universe, a glitch in the entropy of life, because no other system in the universe is aware of its own existence. The universe doesn't wonder why it exists. It just is. The stars don't contemplate their purpose. They shine and they die. The planets don't reflect on their own significance. They orbit. But you are aware. This is the gift of life. To be aware is not only to survive, it is to exist consciously, to observe your own fleeting moment in the vast expanse of time and space. And yet, even as you experience this awareness, you understand that it is not guaranteed, that it is fragile, that it could vanish. But for now, it exists. And in this fleeting moment of awareness, you feel the weight of eternity, the silence of the void, and the fragile beauty of being. Chapter 11. Cultures that could have silenced you. Human history is not a history of progress. It is a history of survival. And along that long road, the culture into which you were born, the values, the norms, the unspoken rules of behavior has shaped who you are. But it also has limitations. There were forces at work in your past, invisible hands that could have stifled your existence, your thoughts, yourself. Forces that tried to erase you, that tried to silence your voice. And yet, here you are. Imagine the many cultures that have risen and fallen over the course of human history, from the earliest tribes to the greatest empires, from the mysterious civilizations lost to time to the powerful modern states that dominate the globe today. Each has its own way of shaping the individual. Some cultures embraced individuality. They nurtured creativity, thought, and self-expression. Others, however, thrived on conformity. They feared the unique, the unpredictable, and the uncontrollable, the outliers, the rebels. And in every one of those cultures, you would have been anomalous. Take the ancient empires. The Roman Empire, for instance, was built upon strict rules of behavior and rigid societal hierarchies. The individual mattered only insofar as they contributed to the power of the state. Social mobility was limited, and those who strayed from the accepted norms were often silenced through exile, imprisonment, or worse. The Greek city-states offered more freedom of thought. In Athens, democracy flourished for a time, and philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle challenged the status quo. But even here, dissent had its price. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth with his ideas. His crime? Asking too many questions. For the thinkers and the dreamers, history is a long record of silencing. The Middle Ages were no kinder. The Catholic Church ruled much of Europe with an iron fist. Anyone who disagreed with the official doctrine was labeled a heretic, persecuted, and often burned at the stake. Ideas were seen as dangerous. Free thought was a threat to order. The Dark Ages were a time when knowledge itself was suppressed and the individual was forced to submit to the authority of religion. Even the Renaissance, that period of brilliant human achievement, was still framed within the boundaries of church approval. Michelangelo's art was subject to censorship. Galileo, who dared to propose that the earth revolved around the sun, was tried for heresy and forced to recant. For most of history, the individual was at odds with the establishment. Your voice, your thoughts were not your own. They were shaped by the culture that ruled you. And yet, over time, society shifted. The rise of individualism in the Enlightenment led to a greater appreciation for human freedom. Thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Locke championed the idea that individuals should be free to think and speak their minds. But even here, the battle between the individual and society was fierce. Even in societies where freedom was celebrated, there were limits. Slavery, women's suffrage, and the LGBTQ+ rights movement are just a few examples of battles fought to give people the voice they were denied for centuries. The fact that you are here, thinking your own thoughts, is not the result of a smooth and easy progression. It is the result of a battle, a long-standing battle against those who would silence you. Even in modern times, though society seems more open, the forces that seek to suppress your individuality remain. In some parts of the world, people still live under authoritarian regimes, where free speech is a crime, where journalists are silenced, where dissent is punishable by death. In some countries, the voices of women, minorities, and marginalized groups are still actively suppressed. And even in democratic societies, the pressure to conform is ever present. There are always forces pulling you toward acceptance, normality, and safety. The pressure to stay quiet when you disagree, the need to fit in. The internet itself, a space meant for free expression, has become a battlefield of cancel culture and algorithmic manipulation. In the digital age, ideas are filtered, censored, and buried under an avalanche of information, and individual voices often get lost. But through it all, you have been allowed to speak. You have found your place in this vast world of human history, a place where you can express yourself, where your ideas can be shared, where your thoughts can be heard. You exist not just because of your biology, but because society has allowed you to exist. And that is something precious, something fragile. Your existence in this world is no guarantee. In any other time, you might have been lost, your voice silenced, your thoughts suppressed. But somehow, the culture you were born into allowed you to become you, to be heard, to think freely, to share your voice with the world. It's not an accident. It's the result of history, of the long arc of human progress, of countless people before you fighting for the right to think, to speak, to be themselves. You stand on the shoulders of giants, those who risked their lives and their reputations to break free from the shackles of conformity. People like Galileo, Socrates, and Voltaire, they were all silenced in their time, but their voices echo still. And now you are part of that same chain. You are here because those before you fought for you to be here, for you to exist in the way you do, as an individual, free to think, free to feel, and free to be aware of your own existence. That is not a small thing. The odds were against you, but society, the culture that shaped you, allowed you to become you, to speak, to live, to think. You were never supposed to be here, and yet you are. And that is the power of survival, of individuality in the face of immense odds. You are a miracle of chance and history. You are the product of every struggle and every victory that came before you, and you are still here. Chapter 12. You've already died 1,000 probable deaths. Every day, in countless ways, you have died. You may be alive now, thinking your thoughts, breathing in the air of this moment. But there have been millions of times throughout your life and throughout your ancestors' lives where things could have gone differently. A slight change here, a random occurrence there, and you could have been lost forever. For every moment you experience, there are an infinite number of alternate realities where you didn't make it. Death, in this way, is not just something that happens at the end of life. It is a constant presence, a shadow lurking behind every breath. But you are alive, and that makes you a survivor of an incredible number of improbable events. Your life exists because, in each of these possible scenarios, you just managed to survive. Consider your birth. It wasn't inevitable. The very fact that you are here now is the product of an extremely unlikely series of events. The sperm that fertilized your egg, the genetic material passed on from your parents, the conditions that allowed you to grow and develop, all of these factors were precisely aligned to bring you into existence. But even that process was full of risks. Your mother's body could have failed to carry you to term. Your birth could have been delayed by an illness or accident. Or, in a twist of fate, the sperm that fertilized your egg could have been someone else's. Countless other sperm could have made it to the egg first, resulting in a completely different combination of genetic material, and someone else would have been born instead. The exact conditions required for you to exist were infinitesimally rare, yet you were the one who survived that cosmic lottery. But the improbability of your existence doesn't stop at birth. Think about the countless accidents that could have ended your life, from your earliest years to this very moment. The first few years of life are filled with fragile systems, a body learning to breathe, to eat, to walk, to speak. You are vulnerable, fragile, and reliant on those around you for survival. During these early years, the odds of dying from an illness, an accident, or a genetic disorder were much higher than they are now. Yet you made it through. You survived childhood without a fatal injury, without an illness that could have been deadly. You learned to interact with the world, to walk, to run, to think, and with each passing day, the odds stacked against you grew smaller, but never disappeared. Let's consider your life so far, even as you read these words. Think of the countless roads you've crossed, each of them leading to a different outcome. Every time you step into a car, every time you walk across the street, every time you take a flight, you are engaging in a delicate dance of probabilities. One misstep, one malfunction, one small mistake from a driver or another pedestrian, and your life could have ended in an instant. But here you are, alive. The fact that you have made it this far is the result of millions of events, each small but significant. Every near miss, every possible outcome where your life could have been snuffed out has passed without incident. But it isn't just physical death we're talking about. Life's fragility exists in every possible outcome. At any given moment, you are faced with decisions. You make choices, interact with others, and follow a path that brings you to where you are now. Each of these choices is a potential path to a different version of you. What if you had made a different decision? What if you had chosen a different job, taken a different road, moved to a different city? Each decision shifts the timeline, opening up countless possibilities for your life, including the possibility that you might not have survived. Even in those times when you think about what ifs, those fleeting reflections on paths you did not take, remember that you are also considering lives that never happened. In those other realities, the one where you made a different decision, your life may have been marked by failure, by an accident, by something completely out of your control. In a million other worlds, you could be lying in a hospital bed, in a different city, or in an early grave, never having made it this far. The paths not taken are full of unknowns, of fates that could have come to pass, but didn't. We often take for granted our survival, as though it's an inevitable process, a natural progression. But when you step back, when you really look at the infinite number of potential deaths that could have come to pass, your continued existence seems nothing short of miraculous. Each decision, each action, each breath you take has prevented 1,000 other versions of yourself from being born, from surviving. Every choice you made to get here, to be who you are, was a choice to continue. And in a universe defined by chaos, that is extraordinary. As you consider your life, your thoughts, your actions, think of the thousands of moments where death could have reached out and taken you. You could have died in a car crash, a disease, a violent event, or simply through the randomness of an unpredictable world. But death did not claim you. And perhaps this realization brings a sense of gratitude. The very fragility of life, the infinite possible deaths that were avoided, makes your life precious. You are not invincible. You are not guaranteed. But you are here, against the overwhelming odds of chaos and chance. Life is not the absence of death. It is the absence of the countless possible deaths that could have been your fate. It is the ability to experience, to grow, to love, to reflect, even as the odds continually conspire against you. In every moment of your life, you have already died 1,000 deaths. Yet somehow, you have persisted. You are here. You exist. And that makes this fleeting moment more meaningful. Your life is a miracle, not because it is free of suffering or free of death, but because it is still here. It exists in a world that is constantly trying to unravel itself. It exists because of thousands of tiny decisions, all of them leading to this moment, leading to the you that can reflect, that can wonder about the odds. You have already died 1,000 times, but somehow, against all the odds, you are still alive. Chapter 13. Time that could have replaced you. Time is the silent force that shapes everything. It is the invisible thread that connects all things, all moments, all lives. Time is not just a backdrop for existence. It is an essential part of what makes existence possible. But what if time had unfolded differently? What if the universe had followed an entirely different trajectory? What if the conditions for your existence had never come to pass? What if you had never been born? In the grand expanse of time, your life is a fleeting, fragile moment. And yet here you are. You are alive and you are aware. But in the context of the infinite flow of time, your existence is far from inevitable. Time stretches back, far beyond your life. And in the future, long after your death, time will continue on, without you. But how did you come to be here, now, in this exact moment? Why, of all the countless possibilities, did you emerge as the one who is aware of time, aware of the world around you, aware of the fragility of existence? Imagine that every moment, every choice, every event is like a single point in a vast sea of possibilities. And that point is part of an infinite line, one that stretches backward in time and forward into the future. The universe is a tapestry of potentialities, each one just as real as the next. The choice to exist, To be born, to experience the world as you do, was not guaranteed. For each point that exists, there are countless other points that could have taken its place. Each one a path not taken, a version of time in which you do not exist. In a universe where the laws of physics are largely consistent, the flow of time can be broken down into simple causes and effects. But it is not predictable. The quantum nature of the universe suggests that, even on the smallest scales, events are governed by probabilities, not certainties. Your existence, like the rest of the universe, is the product of billions of tiny probabilistic events, each one shaping the course of your life. You were born because the right conditions aligned at the right moment. But what if those conditions had been slightly different? In the vast sea of possibilities, there are infinite versions of the world where you were never born. Each of those possibilities is equally real. There are countless versions of Earth, of your parents, of the circumstances that led to your conception, where you never came into being. The sperm that fertilized your mother's egg could have been a different one. Your parents could have met in a different place, at a different time, or not at all. There are billions of ways their lives could have unfolded without you ever becoming part of the story. Even after your conception, the odds were against you. Your body could have failed to form correctly. 1,000 different things could have gone wrong during your development in the womb. And yet, despite those odds, you survived. You were born. But consider this. Even after birth, the likelihood of your survival in those early moments was incredibly small. Infants are fragile. Your body, your immune system, and your brain were all still developing. In the early days of life, the chances of something going wrong, something that could end your life prematurely, were high. But you survived. You made it through the uncertainty of childhood, the unpredictable nature of growth and development. Your heart kept beating, your lungs kept breathing, but in another timeline, in another version of time, that may not have been true. A small infection, an accident, a misstep, any of these could have altered the course of time, and you may not have made it. You could have been replaced. Just another unborn possibility left behind in the vast sea of alternate timelines. This concept, that your life is just one of many possible paths that could have been taken, is an uncomfortable one, and yet it's true. You are not the inevitable result of time. You are the result of one possibility among countless others. Your existence is a miracle of chance. And even as time marches forward, you are a fleeting part of that march, an accident of fate, a point in time that could have been lost to the universe forever. The existence of you, the consciousness that is aware of itself, is fragile. It is a brief flicker in the grand timeline of the cosmos. In the future, the Earth will be long gone. The sun will burn out, the stars will fade. Even the fabric of space-time itself will stretch thin and tear apart as the universe continues to expand. And yet, despite this, you exist now. Your awareness of the universe, of time, of yourself, it is a miracle, a brief moment of clarity in an endless sea of potential deaths and untaken paths. In the grand scheme of time, your life is a short-lived phenomenon. But you are still here, against the odds. The universe does not care about you. It doesn't need you. The universe exists, whether or not you do. The cosmic timeline will continue without you, even after your death. Everything that you are, everything that you've experienced, will eventually be forgotten. And yet, in this fleeting moment, you are alive. You exist as a blip in the grand sea of time, and yet you are aware. You can contemplate your place in the universe. You can reflect on the fact that you exist at all. This knowledge, this realization that you are the result of improbable odds, is humbling. It is not meant to bring despair, but rather to bring a deep appreciation for the fragility and beauty of your existence. You are here, for now. You are part of this vast universe, even if your presence is temporary. Perhaps the greatest lesson is not that time will eventually erase you, but that you are here now, You have the opportunity to live, to think, to be aware. You can feel, you can experience. And though your existence is impermanent, it is still meaningful. You are the result of an infinite sea of probabilities, and yet you are here. The timelines that could have replaced you may be infinite, but in this one, you exist. In the face of time's vastness, in the chaos of existence, you are a survivor. Chapter 14. You should not be hearing this. You should not be hearing this. It's a strange thought, isn't it? To be alive, aware, conscious, and to feel deep within that you shouldn't be, that you are somehow out of place in the vast sweep of time, in the endless expanse of space. You exist because of a series of cosmic accidents, a series of improbable events that by sheer chance led to your creation. And now here you are, listening to these words, contemplating your own existence. But the truth is, you never had to exist. You were never guaranteed. Life and consciousness are incredibly fragile. The conditions that allow you to be aware, to be conscious of this moment, could have easily never come to pass. Let's start with the odds. The odds that you exist at all in this exact form, at this exact moment, are incredible. You are the product of billions of years of evolution, the result of countless random mutations and infinite possibilities that all happen to align. But even beyond that, the very fact that you are here, alive, experiencing this moment, is an accident. The probability of your existence is far smaller than we often imagine. The chances of your parents meeting in the first place, the chances of the right sperm reaching the right egg at the right time, the chances of your body developing perfectly, avoiding countless potential genetic disorders and complications. Every second of your existence is a miracle. But even though you exist, the idea that you should be here, that you were supposed to be here, this idea is an illusion. In the cosmic timeline, your life is but a momentary spark in the dark. The universe is over 13 billion years old, and humanity has been here for only a blink of an eye. In the future, far beyond your time, humanity will be a mere memory, a fleeting moment lost to the vastness of time. The earth will eventually die, consumed by the expanding sun, and the very building blocks that made you will be scattered, returning to the void. In the grand scheme of things, your life is a brief, fragile flicker in an ever-expanding universe. Yet here you are, aware of your own existence. You're thinking, breathing, reflecting. You're aware, you feel. You know that you are here, and you know that you are alive. But in the grand cosmic timeline, your awareness is an anomaly. You should not be hearing this. You should not even be here. You were never meant to be. Your existence is not part of some grand design. It is not the result of an inevitable process. Your being here, listening to these words, pondering the nature of your existence, is simply the result of countless random events that allowed it to happen. But somehow you exist. And that is both remarkable and terrifying. It is easy to think that life and consciousness are the natural outcomes of time, that life evolves and consciousness arises, that it is the purpose of life to be aware. But that's not the case. Life, in all its forms, is an accident. And while we can explain how it works through evolution, natural selection, and genetic mutations, we cannot explain why it exists. We cannot explain why we are conscious, why we feel. It is the greatest mystery of existence. And yet, you are here, aware. You are alive, and you know it. You know that you exist in a way that, despite all the scientific explanations, remains unexplainable. You should not be hearing this because the truth is, you exist by accident. Your existence is the result of improbable events that created you, not for a purpose, not for a reason, but simply because the universe in all its randomness allowed it. But you are still here. As you contemplate the vastness of time, the fleeting nature of your existence becomes clearer. Think about the infinite possibilities that led to your birth, to your life. The universe didn't have to give you a chance. It didn't have to make room for you in the great expanse of time. But it did. For every version of the universe where you don't exist, there is one where you do. There are countless alternate timelines where you never took breath, where your ancestors didn't meet, where the conditions of the universe were slightly different and didn't support life as we know it. Your life is not inevitable. It is a miracle of chance. Now, consider the meaning of all of this. Why does it matter? Why does it matter that you exist when the universe will eventually forget you? Why does it matter that you have awareness, that you have thought and feeling when all of this will someday end? Perhaps it's because in this moment, in the brevity of your existence, you feel alive. You know that you are here, and you know that your presence, however fleeting, has meaning to you. You exist for now, and that is enough. But even as you embrace this truth, you must acknowledge that you should not be here. You should not have existed. There was no plan, no purpose, just the randomness of the universe and the chance that everything fell into place. In a billion alternate timelines, you do not exist. In another reality, you might have been replaced by someone else, by an event that prevented your birth. Perhaps you are one of 1,000 possible versions of yourself, each one experiencing life in different circumstances, in different conditions. But in this timeline, you are here. This idea that you should not be here can be both comforting and unsettling. It's humbling to think that your existence is the product of chance. And yet it's also freeing, because it means that there is no grand design to your life. You are not destined for greatness, nor are you fated for failure. You are simply here in this moment because the universe allowed it. You should not be here, but you are. And in that there is a kind of beauty. Your life, your awareness, your existence, they are impermanent, but that makes them more valuable, more precious. It's the very fact that you should not be here, that your existence is a miracle, that makes every moment of your life so significant. You exist, not because you had to, but because the universe, in all its randomness, allowed it. And that is what makes you real. That is what makes your life worth living. Chapter 15. And yet you do. You are here. It's a strange thing to consider, the fact that you exist at all. In a universe defined by vast spaces, timelines, and infinite possibilities, the fact that you are alive, aware, and able to reflect on your own existence is a miracle in and of itself. You should not be here. You were never guaranteed. You are a collection of incredible odds, a product of countless random events, each one contributing to this moment of awareness. And yet, despite all the evidence against your inevitability, here you are, alive, aware, existing. The universe is a place of infinite chaos. It is vast, indifferent, and constantly evolving. Galaxies form and collapse, stars burn out, and black holes devour everything in their path. Time stretches forward in a way we can barely comprehend, and in the grand scale of existence, our lives are but fleeting, fragile moments. And yet you exist, you feel, you think, you question. You are aware of yourself, of your thoughts, of your place in the universe. You, and countless others before you, have passed through this veil of impermanence and improbability to become something aware, something alive. You are aware of your fleeting existence, and in that awareness, there is something deeply profound. Every moment of your life is an anomaly. You are part of the story of chance, the random events that lined up to create the conditions for your birth, for your awareness. From the formation of the first stars to the development of life on Earth, from the creation of your parents to your own birth, everything that has led to this moment was a confluence of events, each of which could have turned out differently. Your survival, your very existence, is an accident in the grand sweep of the universe. And yet, in the face of these staggering odds, you exist. You are here. What does that mean exactly? In the face of a universe so vast, so indifferent to the individual, why does it matter that you are here? Why does it matter that you are alive, that you are aware of your own existence? Perhaps it's because you too are part of the universe. You are a small but significant part of this ever-changing, chaotic, and unpredictable cosmos. While the universe doesn't care about you in any grand cosmic sense, you have the ability to care about it. You can feel the weight of existence, the fleeting nature of your time here, and in that awareness, you can find a sense of meaning. You are not eternal. You are not invincible. You are fragile, just like everything else in the universe. But in this fragility lies something precious. For all the randomness and chaos of existence, you are still here. You exist in this moment, aware of your own life, of your thoughts, and of your place in time. You may never know why you are here. You may never fully understand how it all came to be. But the fact that you are alive, that you are capable of feeling, thinking, and being aware of your own existence is a miracle of immense proportions. You should not be here, but you are. You may be tempted to feel insignificant in the face of the vastness of the universe. The stars are far away, the galaxies are countless, and your life is but a fleeting moment in the grand timeline of time. But the truth is, you matter. You matter to yourself. You matter to the people you love. You matter to the world around you. And that is enough, because you are here, and in this moment of existence, you are capable of experiencing the world. You can think, you can feel, you can reflect on your own existence. Even in the face of the universe's indifference, your awareness makes this moment worth living. Perhaps the most powerful thing about existence is the moment of awareness, the ability to recognize that you are alive, that you are aware, and that your life, however brief, is a part of something vast and beautiful. There is no grand cosmic purpose that demands your existence. The universe does not owe you anything, but you are here. And in that simple fact, there is a beauty that transcends the indifference of the cosmos. Life is fragile, existence is temporary, but you are here, and that is enough. You should not be hearing this, but you are. And in that you find meaning, because you are alive. And that in itself is the greatest gift the universe has ever offered. You are a fleeting moment in the grand timeline of the universe, a miracle of chance, a survivor of countless improbable events. Yet in this brief existence there is meaning, because for now you are here, alive, aware. Thank you for joining this journey. Rest well, for in the vast expanse of time, you matter.